people struggled. And then there were times where it wasn't easy, right? When you go through injuries and you're away from home and you're away from family and maybe you're out of form, you're not playing well, but as a 15-year-old, like you're not used to that because you're always the best of the best. And now you're playing with the best guys across the country.
That was Jared Watts talking about IMG. Hello, everyone. Rev Brad coming to you from the Touchline. Today's podcast, part 2 of our interview with Jared. Last week, he shared about his development at IMG Academy. In this episode, he shares more about an ACL injury he suffered while being away from home. He talks about some of the supportive people that were part of his time at IMG. So grab a coffee, grab some tissues. We get stuck in with Jared right after this.
He's found the space, and he's found the back of the net.
Just a little off foot, thinking he's going to go far post. Not strong enough with his right hand.
Whips that one in. Far post, almost made him ends, and they have. He has the hat-trick. The second in his career. The third of the night. The hat-trick hero.
Talked about you're not going to be able to sustain that kind of pressure.
To the corner. Goes towards the near post. And you're the angle, and what a goal! What a goal!
Talk a little bit about, did you have any injuries or anything significant that you had to go through while you were away from home?
I did. Yep. A major injury, especially being pretty young. I mean, I was 15 years old and we were playing in a friendly we were playing against Notre Dame. We were scrimmaging. They were down for like a spring season. So we played
like the
Notre
men's
Dame.
college team, right?
Yeah, the college team, right? So we're playing college players and we're, 15, 16. And, we actually tied them that game 0-0. But I just jumped up and was playing and ran across and was jumping up for like a routine kind of normal header and came down and, tore my ACL instantly. And I knew it was something pretty bad. I had never had an injury before that. Like I'm talking, I was, you're at that age, you're young, you think you're kind of invincible. Like, and then all of a sudden you have a knee injury where they're like, hey, you're going to be out for 9 months and you have to have surgery. And I was like, surgery, I had never broken anything or, so
yeah,
that was like a shock. And I'm 15. I was the captain of the team at the time. It was like 10 months before qualifying. So it was scary times, especially looking back and just thinking like, well, okay, this is going to change and, the trajectory of potentially my career. So
did you have a sense of that at 15? Because sometimes at that age, you don't sense that, this could be done. I could be done. This could be over. Did you have a sense of that?
a little bit. Newcastle wanted me to come over on trial. After, so we had a pretty good Nike friendlies. We were the first under 17 team to ever beat Brazil. Neymar and Coutinho were on that team. I was the captain. I had a good showing. Newcastle had talked about wanting to bring me over for trial. I really had no idea what that meant, but I was like, hey, I'll try it. I'll do it. But I got injured. So that kind of changed everything. And then, leading up to qualifying, I had to start thinking about, well, am I going to be back? I'll be back, but am I going to be healthy? Am I going to be strong enough to play? And then you just start thinking about all of that, which as a 15-year-old away from home, dealing with school as well, like it was definitely something that was new to me. I had to kind of navigate that, but that was part of kind of the growth process.
Jared, you share this. If folks don't know, you share a little bit about this story about your ACL injury in a little testimonial video that we have on our website. You talk about it, but would you kind of revisit it a little bit with us? Like just coming down on your knee, what happened?
Yeah. So, immediately after, I knew it was something like, it's weird, an ACL injury. It hurts right at the moment, and you kind of know, oh, this is something serious in my knee, no, non-contact. But you get up and you're sore, and you can kind of walk, and you're just like, I don't know. I knew it was something pretty significant, but going directly off the field into our little, we had a little tent, like a little treatment tent. Throw ice on it really quickly, just try to kind of figure out, okay, next steps. What's that going to look like? I mean, I hadn't been off the field probably for 5 minutes, but our team chaplain down there, who again, Butch Morley with J316 Ministries, like has had a immense impact on just my spirituality, my faith, my relationship. Like that was a very, very, those 2.5 years in residency and his involvement, getting to know him, and like just shaped a lot of the way that, I kind of walk in faith and
So he was
belief today.
there at the game.
He was on the field. Yeah, he was at the game. He would come out every now and then and watch us, and just, I think it was a Wednesday, and we would have, we had our Bible studies Wednesday night. So he'd come out and give a little flyer. We'd had a memory verse, and then, we'd recite the memory verse Wednesday night. We'd get like a brownie his wife would bring and make for everybody. So, just memories like that. But he was on the field. So he came over and he just said, "Hey, like, let me pray for you." Like, and it was such a powerful moment. Like I was just at such peace in that time, in that instant, and knew like, hey, this is going to be something. It's not going to be great, but like I had a sense of peace and knew that it was going to be okay. And like fast forward, a week goes by, I have the MRI, okay, we know what it is. I've got to have surgery. We're in, my parents, I think either my mom or dad or both of them fly down. We're going to have surgery. The Tampa Bay, Buccaneers doctor's going to do my surgery. We're going in early morning. Well, Butch Morley shows up, our team chaplain.
Yeah.
Right. He's in the waiting room for me, waiting, and just wants to say a prayer with all of us before he goes in. And he's like, "Hey, I've got a verse on my heart I want to share with you." And, it was the first time that I really heard Jeremiah 29:11, and it like sunk in at that moment in that time. But he just shared like, "Hey, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to help you and not to harm you, but to give you a hope and a future." And that was just, again, the piece that I was already okay with what was going on, but just, again, to have that support and to know that, hey, it's going to be okay. Like, this is just something I've got to get through. And, there's a reason, and there's I'm injured for a reason. Right. And that's just kind of how I thought about it and how I got through it.
Yeah. Well, it's great that your parents could be there, right, for you, because there's a lot of times a footballer has an injury and a surgery and family can't be there for you. They can't be around your bedside. And what a great moment for Butch to step in and offer words of comfort and encouragement and support. And so this happens 10 months before the qualifying cycle for U17 World Cup, right?
Correct.
What do the next few months look like rehab wise? And like, cause Jared, the truth is, when you're injured as a footballer, you're outside the team. You're not on the team anymore in the sense that, yeah, you're still a team member, but you're on the outside looking in, and you can feel very disconnected. You can feel very unsure of yourself. You can lose a lot of confidence. You can lose a lot of hope. It can be really, really difficult because the team goes on, they experience things, they go through training, they have high moments, low moments that they work through, and you're just kind of there. So what was that recovery rehab process like for you?
It is tough, right? Because you're a little bit outside of the team and you're not doing kind of the day-to-day, which is challenging, but also, I think you've got to just have a certain mindset about it. Like, you've got to work to get back to a certain point and know that, hey, maybe I'm not on the field with the team, but I'm, back in rehab. I'm first one in, I'm last one out. I'm doing extra work. Like, you do little things like that, but yeah, you definitely, you don't feel the same. You're disconnected from the team. And that's just, coaches are thinking about different players, and it's a challenge. I mean, I stayed in Florida for a couple months as we were winding down the summer, and the semester, I'm sorry, before the summer, and we were winding down the semester. So, that was good. I got a good jump start on the rehab there every day. But then the team, and leading up to qualifying, during the summer, right, we're not in school, so we're taking a lot of international trips. We're going and playing friendlies. So there was a lot of travel that was happening with the team, and I was injured, and it didn't really make sense for me to be there. And so I wasn't involved during that time period in that summer. And I actually came back to North Carolina and stayed and rehabbed. And again, that was kind of led to another blessing for me in my life, to be able to be and have that chunk of time in rehab in North Carolina. But then kind of reconnect the following semester when, going back and starting school, and then having kind of that build up to the qualifying. So
talk a little bit more about that blessing in disguise that you just kind of mentioned?
Yeah, so I, again, wasn't involved. I wasn't traveling and doing a lot of the international trips over the summer because I was injured. So had a specialist in North Carolina that I would see every other day, and I would do rehab. And I was very committed to that for just over 2.5, almost 3 months. And at the time, I got to spend really so, and I probably talked to this. I know I've shared, Brad, and you know this about me, but relationship with my grandfather, he was probably the kind of cornerstone and rock and person that I saw from an early age in the way that he lived out his faith and as a Christian, and the impact that he had on just everybody, not just my family, but his community, his church. And he and I were very, very close. And I got to spend some incredible quality time with him that summer just because I was home, I was doing rehab, and it was close to where he lived, and just all these things just connected perfectly. So it was a special time for him and I, and just great quality time. And it was one of those things I would call him the night before I would leave for a trip with the national team. I would call him every single day, every single night, right? Leading up to it. That was just kind of our routine. And I'd call him every week besides that, but especially knowing that I was going, overseas, international, before the times, like your phone would just work. Like I had a cell phone, but it didn't work internationally. So I would make sure carve out time and talk to him before every big trip, because I might go a week or 10 days or 2 weeks and I wouldn't talk to him. And so that's something that I always made sure that I did. But I got to spend that quality time with him for that summer, which was so awesome. And that was a blessing for me because, that next winter he passed away. And so, and if I hadn't have been injured, if I hadn't have been at home, and if I hadn't have been in North Carolina, I would have not had that 2.5 months of just quality time with him. And looking back at it, like that was so meaningful for me. And I would take that injury 100 times if it meant that I got to spend, and I think the Lord put me in that place to be able to spend more time with him.
Yeah.
And that was just a special moment,
Jared, I know it's personal. Like sometimes, and you can say, "Hey, pass. Let's do this another time." But what would one of those phone calls look like? Because I think sometimes, we have children or grandchildren that are part of this game, and we don't realize sometimes the impact that we may have just with a simple phone call, FaceTime, whatever it is, text message nowadays, Instagram, whatever. But for you and your grandfather, what did a call look like? Did he offer you words of wisdom? Did he just listen? Did he share a funny story? Like what was the thing about a call with grandfather that kind of gave you that encouragement, that support?
Yeah, well, the beauty of it is it would hardly ever be about soccer. Not that he wasn't interested, because I'll tell you what, when I was growing up, he was at every single game as a youth soccer player. Like he would come and travel and stay with us. And guess what? He didn't have a clue about soccer. He didn't know offsides. He didn't know, and he was just so supportive, and he would be curious, hey, where are you going? And he would, just want to ask about school. And then he would want to ask, just how I'm doing. And it was just simple conversation. And it was something that was so meaningful for me. Like it was a way to not have to talk about soccer and have the pressures of, like, he didn't care if I performed or if I was captain and playing every game, or, hey, if I never played soccer again. We would always talk about kind of what was going on with him, and, what he was doing day to day. Cause his big days were, he'd go have an early breakfast with his sister, and then he'd go to their little mall and he would walk laps at their mall, and then he'd come home, and there was a pond behind his house that we used to go fishing at, and I'd always ask him, about, hey, how's the water level there? Have you done any fishing? Like that's just a ingrained memory in my childhood that we would do. And so we would just talk about that. He lived in, walking distance to his church, and he was an usher and deacon at his church, and so involved at his church for so long. And so we'd talk about his church, and just, yeah, it wasn't really a lot about soccer. And he'd always he'd always kind of end the call, you know, he'd be like, well, hey, you know, love you. I'll talk to you next time. You know, remember, you can't always win them all, but I'm so proud of you. And just something like that was so, you know, powerful, and it meant a lot. And, you know, that those are the conversations that you cherish.
If you're a parent or a grandparent, I want you to maybe roll back the podcast and listen for those last few minutes. You know, sometimes what our children, our grandchildren, our athletes need isn't another coach on the sideline or on the car ride home. They don't need an expert of the game to break down film with them. What they need to know is that they're loved and that we're there for them. It could be a powerful thing just to be human to them, to remind them that we're proud of them and we care deeply for them. Those are the moments remembered. Those are the conversations that are cherished. Well, tune in next week. We hear more from Jared on the work he's doing today, and we get in a game of crosses with Rev. This has been Rev Brad with Jared Watts coming to you from the Touchline.